There comes a moment in a man's life when he feels something shift. He can't always explain it clearly, but deep down, something inside him knows the truth. The energy has changed. The respect isn't the same. The effort has become completely one-sided. And yet, most men stay. They stay hoping things will return to how they used to be. They stay because they're emotionally invested. They stay because walking away feels harder than holding on. But here's the psychological truth most men avoid facing. When a woman stops valuing you, staying longer doesn't fix the problem. It weakens your position. And the longer you ignore the signs, the more you lose. Not just her, but yourself. This is Liza from Secrets Inside the Mind. And today I'm breaking down 6 critical psychological signs that tell you it's time to leave immediately. Not out of anger, not out of ego, but out of clarity, self-respect, and understanding of how attraction and human psychology actually work.
Engagement CTA number 1, around 1 minute. If you've ever stayed in a relationship longer than you should have, if you've ever ignored signs that were right in front of you, subscribe right now. Because this video reveals the psychological reality behind female behavior and what her actions are actually communicating. Keep watching until the end, because the final sign is the most important one, and the one most men completely miss. Section 1. The psychology of staying too long. Why men ignore the signs. Before we get into the 6 signs, you need to understand the psychology of why men stay when they shouldn't. From a psychological perspective, emotional investment creates what's called a sunk cost bias. The more time, energy, and emotion you've invested in a relationship, the harder it becomes to walk away, even when the signs are clear that you should. Your brain tells you that leaving means losing everything you've put in, but staying means losing even more. That psychologically, men also tend to operate on hope that she'll go back to how she was in the beginning, hope that if they just try harder, give more, be more patient, things will improve. But here's the harsh psychological reality. Attraction is not rebuilt through increased effort from one side. It's rebuilt through respect, boundaries, and the willingness to walk away when necessary. Here's another critical psychological principle. The moment you tolerate behavior that goes against your standards, you silently teach her how to treat you. You're training her, without words, that this behavior is acceptable. And once that pattern is established, it becomes increasingly difficult to reverse. This is not about playing games or being cold. This is about understanding that in relationship psychology, how you respond to poor treatment determines how you will continue to be treated. A man who accepts less will always receive less. A man who walks away when his standards are violated will always command more respect. The 6 signs I'm about to share are not just behavioral patterns, they're psychological signals. Her mind is communicating something to you through her behavior, and your job is to read those signals clearly instead of explaining them away. Section 2. Sign number 1. Respect drops. The foundation begins to crack. The first sign you need to leave immediately is when respect starts disappearing from her behavior. Not just her words, her actual behavior. From a psychological perspective, respect is the foundation of every healthy relationship. When it erodes, everything else begins to collapse. Attraction, emotional connection, genuine desire. Without respect, nothing else can hold the relationship together regardless of how much love or history exists. Here's how it shows up psychologically. She interrupts you more frequently. She dismisses your opinions without real consideration. She speaks to you with a tone that feels slightly condescending or dismissive. She makes subtle jokes at your expense in public. She ignores things that clearly matter to you. It starts small, almost unnoticeable, but over time it becomes consistent. Many men make the mistake of trying to negotiate respect. They explain, they over-communicate, they try to fix things by being more patient, more understanding, more accommodating. But here's the psychological reality. Respect is not something you convince someone to give you. It's not something you earn through patience or extra effort. Respect is something that's naturally given to a man who carries himself with strong standards and the clear willingness to walk away when those standards are violated. Psychologically, the moment she sees that you will tolerate disrespect to keep her, her perception of you changes fundamentally. You stop being the man she values and start becoming the man she feels she can control. And once that dynamic sets in, attraction begins to fade, even if she doesn't consciously acknowledge it. The strongest psychological move you can make when respect drops is not arguing, not proving a point, not trying to win her back through words. It's pulling your energy back completely. It's being ready to walk away without hesitation, because when respect is gone, staying longer doesn't rebuild it. It only confirms that you're willing to accept less, and a woman will never fully value a man who accepts less than he deserves. Section 3. Sign Ishvern 2. Effort fades. One-sided investment is not a relationship. The second sign is when her effort starts fading and yours starts increasing to compensate. This is one of the most psychologically dangerous dynamics in any relationship. Here's the psychological pattern. In the beginning, she made time for you without hesitation. She responded with genuine energy. She showed curiosity about your life. She invested in keeping the connection alive. That wasn't random behavior. That was interest. That was genuine desire for connection with you. But when effort begins to disappear, it's never without psychological reason. You start noticing slower responses, shorter conversations, canceled plans, and a general lack of enthusiasm. She becomes less available, less engaged, and less willing to meet you halfway. Here's where most men make a critical psychological mistake. They respond by increasing their own effort. They text more, try harder, become more available, overgive in hopes of reigniting what's fading. But psychologically, this only makes the imbalance worse. When she reduces her effort and you increase yours, the attraction dynamic shifts dramatically. She starts to feel less need to invest because you're already doing all the work. There's no longer any emotional tension, no challenge, no sense that she needs to earn your attention. And psychologically, that kills attraction because predictability without effort leads to emotional boredom. Here's the critical psychological principle. Effort is a direct reflection of interest. When a woman truly wants you, she finds ways to show up, even when she's busy, even when life is demanding. She doesn't leave you guessing consistently. She doesn't make you feel like you're chasing something that keeps pulling away. So when the effort drops and stays low, you don't chase. You don't beg for her time. You match her energy. And if that leads to distance, you allow it. Because if she wants to be there, she will be there. And if she doesn't, no amount of effort from your side will change that fundamental psychological reality. The moment you feel like you're the only one holding the connection together is the moment you need to seriously consider walking away. Not out of frustration, but out of self-respect. Because a woman values what she invests in. If she stops investing in you, she will slowly stop valuing you. And that's your psychological signal to leave before you lose more than just time. Section 4. Sign number 3, boundaries tested, when she pushes to see how far you'll go. The third sign is when she starts testing your boundaries, and you keep letting it slide. From a psychological perspective, boundary testing is not always aggressive or obvious. It's often subtle, calculated, and gradual. She cancels plans last minute without real reasons. She shows up late consistently. She pushes against things you've already made clear matter to you. She crosses lines in small ways to see how you'll respond. Here's the psychological reality most men miss. These are not random behaviors. They're tests. She's watching how you respond. She's measuring your standards without directly asking what they are. She's checking whether your boundaries are real or just words you say, and this is where most men fail psychologically without realizing it. Instead of standing firm, they laugh it off. They make excuses for her behavior. They avoid addressing it because they don't want conflict. They think being easygoing keeps the peace. But what actually happens is the complete opposite. When you fail to enforce your boundaries, You create silent psychological permission for her to keep pushing further. Each time you let something slide that genuinely bothers you, you weaken your position in her perception. Not because she consciously wants to lose respect for you, but because you're showing her that your words don't carry real weight. Psychologically, a woman feels secure and genuinely attracted when she knows the man she's with has clear limits and stands by them calmly and decisively, not through anger, not through controlling behavior, but through clear and consistent action. If something crosses your line, you address it once clearly and directly. If it continues, you remove yourself. The critical psychological mistake is thinking you can teach someone to respect you while continuing to stay in situations where your boundaries are ignored. Respect is reinforced through action, never through words alone. The moment she sees you're willing to walk away when your standards are crossed, everything becomes psychologically clear. Either she steps up and meets you at that level, or she lets you go. And if she lets you go, you haven't lost anything valuable. You've removed yourself from a situation that was slowly undermining your self-worth. Section 5. Sign number 4. Emotional distance grows when she's present, but gone. The fourth sign is emotional distance, and you don't need her to say it out loud to feel when she's emotionally pulling away. Psychologically, emotional withdrawal is one of the most painful and confusing experiences in a relationship because it's invisible. She's physically present but emotionally absent. The conversations lose depth, the laughter feels forced, the natural flow you once had starts to disappear. She becomes less expressive, less open, less interested in sharing genuine thoughts and feelings. You might notice she no longer asks about your life in a meaningful way. When you speak, she listens without truly engaging. You're present together but not genuinely connected, and this gap, this invisible emotional distance, is often harder to address than obvious conflict. Here's the critical psychological mistake most men make. They respond to emotional distance by chasing emotional reassurance. They ask more questions, try to dig deeper, attempt to force closeness through more conversation or more pressure for clarity. But emotional distance does not close through pressure. Psychologically, it widens. The more you try to force connection, the more she feels the gap and retreats further. A woman's attraction is deeply tied to how she feels in your presence, and when that feeling starts fading, it rarely returns through words alone. From a psychological standpoint, emotional withdrawal is one of the clearest signals that something has already changed internally for her. She may not be ready to end things consciously, but she's no longer fully emotionally invested in the way she once was. Here's what the psychology tells you to do. Step back and observe instead of chasing. Give space, not as a manipulation tactic, but as a clear decision rooted in self-respect. Let her feel your absence instead of your pressure. If she still values the connection, she'll notice the shift and reach back. If she doesn't, the distance will continue to grow naturally. And that's your answer, without needing a single conversation. You cannot build a strong relationship with someone who is emotionally unavailable to you. No amount of effort, patience, or understanding replaces genuine emotional presence. And the longer you stay connected to someone who is slowly detaching, the more you disconnect from yourself. Engagement, CTA or 2, around 12 minutes. If you're recognizing these signs in your own relationship right now, comment below. Tell me which sign resonates most with your experience. Like this video if it's giving you the clarity you needed. And if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe now because the next 2 signs are the most important ones. Section 6. Sign number 5, constant drama. When chaos replaces connection, the 5th sign is constant drama. And here's the important psychological distinction. There's a clear difference between normal disagreements and consistent emotional chaos. Every relationship has moments of tension. That's completely normal. But when drama becomes a recurring pattern, it stops being a phase and becomes her primary way of interacting with you. Small issues transform into major problems. Simple conversations become arguments. Peace never seems to last long enough to feel real. Psychologically, this keeps you in a constant state of emotional alertness. You become more careful with your words, more cautious with your actions. and you start adjusting yourself just to avoid triggering another conflict. That's not a relationship. That's psychological survival mode. Here's why many men stay in this pattern from a psychological standpoint. The emotional highs feel intensely real. After every argument, there may be moments of closeness, passion, or temporary peace that make it feel like things are genuinely improving. But those highs are part of the cycle, not signs of progress. They keep you emotionally attached while the overall destructive pattern remains unchanged. The psychological damage of constant drama is significant and cumulative. It erodes your confidence slowly. It pulls your focus away from your purpose, your growth, and your peace. Your mental energy, which should be directed toward building your life, is constantly being redirected toward managing the relationship's instability. A woman who consistently creates drama will continue that pattern as long as you stay engaged in it. She may not even be fully aware of it psychologically, but the pattern continues because there are never real consequences for it. You argue, you resolve temporarily, and then it repeats at a different trigger point. Breaking that cycle psychologically requires removing yourself from the environment that feeds it. Not by trying to fix her behavior, not by explaining yourself repeatedly, but by walking away from what's consistently unstable. Because you cannot build something genuinely strong in an environment of consistent chaos. A healthy connection should feel calm, not chaotic. It should provide clarity, not confusion. And if you find yourself constantly navigating unnecessary drama, you need to ask yourself honestly, is this adding genuine value to your life? Or is it consistently taking away from it? Section 7. Sign after 6. She stops choosing you, the most critical sign of all. The sixth and most important psychological sign is when she stops choosing you consistently. And this is the one most men recognize last, and usually when significant damage has already been done. At the core of every strong, healthy connection is a fundamental psychological truth. She chooses you consistently and without confusion, not just in words during good moments, but in her actual actions, her daily priorities, and how she shows up in your life repeatedly over time. The moment that changes, everything else you've been holding on to starts losing its psychological foundation. You begin noticing you're no longer a real priority in her world. She has time and energy for other things, other people, other distractions. But when it comes to you, there's always a delay, an excuse, or a notable lack of urgency. It feels like you're being fitted into the gaps of her life rather than being a clear, valued part of it. Psychologically, a woman who truly values you doesn't make you question where you stand with her. She makes it clear through consistent action. You don't have to chase her attention. You don't have to compete for her time. You don't have to wonder if she still wants you around. Here's the critical psychological mistake most men make when she stops choosing them. They try to win her back by becoming more attentive, more available, more willing to accept less just to maintain proximity. They believe that showing more effort will make her realize their value again. But psychologically, this approach rarely produces the intended outcome. Instead, it reinforces the idea that you'll stay regardless of how little she gives. And once that pattern is psychologically established, your perceived value continues to decline in her eyes. You've communicated through your behavior that you don't have alternatives, that you don't have standards strong enough to enforce, and that her inconsistency is something you'll absorb indefinitely. Here's the psychological reality. Attraction is not maintained by holding on tighter when someone is pulling away. It's maintained by self-respect and the genuine willingness to release the connection when the dynamic has fundamentally changed. When she stops choosing you, you're left with a clear psychological decision. You either stay and accept being an option in someone else's life, or you walk away and protect your position, your confidence, and your direction. There is no middle ground that produces a genuinely strong outcome. Walking away when she stops choosing you does something psychologically powerful. It sends a clear message, not just to her, but to yourself, that you don't settle for being half chosen, that your presence in someone's life has value, that your time and emotional investment are not available to anyone who treats them as optional. Section 8. The psychological power of walking away, what it actually does. Now that you understand the 6 signs, let me explain the deeper psychology of what actually happens when you walk away with genuine conviction. From a psychological perspective, walking away is not a manipulation tactic. It's not a game. It's not about making her miss you so she'll come back. It's about something far more fundamental: restoring your psychological equilibrium and refusing to participate in dynamics that diminish your self-worth. But here's what the psychology reveals about how women process a man's departure. When you walk away with calmness, clarity, and genuine conviction, without anger, without begging, without drama, it creates a powerful psychological impact. It demonstrates a level of self-respect and emotional control that is genuinely rare. Her mind begins the recalibration process we discussed in previous videos. She experiences shock, then curiosity, then reevaluation of what you meant to her. She begins to assess your value through your absence in ways she never did through your presence, because absence forces honest evaluation in ways that presence never can. If she valued the connection, distance will reveal it clearly. She'll reach out. She'll make effort. She'll demonstrate through behavior that she recognizes what she had, and at that point, you're negotiating from a position of strength rather than desperation. If she didn't value the connection at the level you deserved, distance will free you. It will allow you to redirect your energy, your focus, and your emotional investment towards something more aligned with what you actually deserve. Either way, walking away puts you back in control of your own psychological narrative. Either way, you win by choosing yourself. Final section: the psychology of choosing yourself. Here's the final psychological truth I want you to carry forward. The moment you start feeling like you have to prove your worth to someone, something is already broken in the dynamic. A strong connection doesn't require you to compete for basic consideration. It doesn't require you to fight for emotional presence. It doesn't make you question your value constantly or feel like you're always one wrong move away from losing her. Real psychological strength is not in holding on when everything is falling apart. Real strength is knowing when to step back and refusing to accept less than what aligns with your actual standards. The 6 signs I've shared today: respect dropping, effort fading, boundaries being tested, emotional distance growing, constant drama, and her stopping to choose you, are all psychological signals communicating the same fundamental message. This connection is no longer serving you the way it should. Leaving doesn't mean you failed. Leaving means you understood.
Leaving means you chose yourself over confusion, peace over chaos, self-respect over emotional comfort. And from a psychological standpoint, that decision, that one decision to walk away with clarity and conviction, often does more to restore your sense of self and your direction in life than anything else you could do. If she values you, distance will reveal it. If she doesn't, distance will free you. Either outcome returns you to yourself, and that is always worth choosing. If this video gave you the clarity you needed, comment below. Tell me which of the 6 signs you've been experiencing. Tell me what's been holding you back from making the decision you already know you need to make. Like this video if it helped you see your situation more clearly.
Share it with someone who needs to hear this truth. And subscribe to Secrets Inside the Mind, because understanding the psychology of relationships, self-respect, and attraction is what separates men who build strong connections from men who stay stuck in ones that drain them. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.